With Azzi Fudd out tonight, UConn will need 3 players. Yes, 3 players to step up in her absence. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. This podcast has grown so much over the last 9 months. It's because of fans like you who value this great UConn content. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering both the UConn women's and men's basketball programs, as well as the football. We are the absolute basketball capital of the world, and we sprinkle in a little football. So we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. To show our gratitude, we are giving back to the community. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games. We're also donating a small portion of our proceeds to NIL, Bleeding Blue for Good. It helps make a difference for our athletes at UConn. And if you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, leave a review wherever you listen. Thank you again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay. Thursday night brings one of the most compelling rivalries in women's college basketball right to the center stage. ESPN, 7 o'clock, number 2 UConn, 8-0 versus number 8 Notre Dame at the Purcell Pavilion in South Bend. And while the programs have faced off many times, and we're going to talk about that today in this program, the history of this rivalry, but we're going to get into this game in particular tonight, losing a little bit of star power with the absence of Azzi Fudd. The Huskies won't be at full strength. Not an excuse, just a reality. She suffered a minor knee sprain against Louisville and will miss at least a week. After that, Gino says she's day-to-day. With Azzi sidelined tonight, the spotlight can fall on 3 players. Yes, 3 players, because I want to explain this a little bit before we get into the nuts and bolts of this. Azzi is such a talent, and people know when she's on the floor, they have to account for her on the offensive side. People will find her for open jumpers. She is more than just a shooter. As you saw in a limited action this year, she's getting to the hole more. She has really evolved her game from just being that, sniper to someone that can get to the hole, pass, play some pretty good defense a little bit this year, even though that's been a struggle of hers in the past. So she's that type of player where the psyche of the other team not having to worry about her gives them a little bit of confidence boost. So it's not going to be one player. It's not just going to be Ashlynn Shade. It's not just going to be someone off the bench that typically doesn't play, like a Morgan Shelley. I believe it's an aggregate of 3 players kind of filling her shoes, and that's the beauty of having this depth that Gino has talked about. And I think those 3 players are a couple of predictable ones: Ashlynn Shade, Kaitlyn Chen, and KK Arnold. Now, Ashlynn brings plenty of defensive energy. Offensively, her versatility is pretty damn good. She's averaging 13 points per 40 minutes this season. While improving on her defensive contributions, she has 13 steals. Gino is confident in her ability to rise to the occasion. But he's also pushing her to expand her impact, particularly on the glass, on the boards. And in this game, I totally agree, because if you watch any Notre Dame this year, they are absolutely maniacal offensive rebounders. They try to attack the glass at all times. Kaitlyn Chen will be crucial from a scoring perspective, because I think her extra shooting, her scoring 2 or 3 extra points tonight, 4, 5, 6, really could provide a spark for this team that they don't get from her if Azzi is playing. And also, let's not forget, she's a grad transfer. Her leadership, what she was brought in here to do, is to settle the ship when stuff like this happens, right? Whether it's an injury, whether it's foul trouble, she needs to come in and provide the leadership that she was brought into this program as a grad transfer. Now, she stepped up in the past, and I expect her to step up in a big game, in the first big game of the season for UConn. Played some ranked opponents. North Carolina is probably the best team they played this year, but maybe Ole Miss. But this is a whole other animal. So both her and Ashlynn will be stepping up into expanded offensive roles. And then when you talk about KK Arnold, I think she'll be tasked from time to time, she's not starting, to contain the explosive Hannah Hidalgo. Hidalgo's only 5'6", but she thrives on quickness, craftiness, tempo, her pacing, how she gets to the hoop. But Arnold's physicality and defensive intensity can 100% disrupt that rhythm. And the beauty of this is, as Gino's called her a TikTok menace, is with UConn's depth, unlike last year, you don't really have to worry about foul trouble. Like, yeah, I don't think she should be going out there hacking her and playing only, on the men's side, like something like what happened with Singari, where he had 4 fouls in 10 minutes and almost fouled out in the first half. That was to spell the other guys. KK's not going to be out there to spell Ashlynn or Kaitlyn or other guards. She is literally going to be. I know this because she is easily our best on-ball defender in the backcourt. She's bigger than her. She's about 4 or 5 inches taller. She's just as quick. I think you can really play physical without the fear of, well, I have 3 fouls, so I can't like play physical again. If you get 4, so what? You go sit for a little bit. You fall out of this game. It's okay. The whole point is to slow her down. If you slow down Hannah Hidalgo, this team is a different team. If you let her start fast and she continues to rise, then as we'll get into them, the rest of the team feeds off of that. So again, this trio will need to shoulder that load and ensure UConn stays competitive in Azzi's absence. And I think that's 100% going to happen. Ashlynn is expected to step into the starting lineup, a role she's familiar with after being a key part of UConn's Final Four run last year and the Big East Freshman of the Year, reigning. As Paige said, this doesn't change much for us. Ashlynn brings a lot to the table offensively and defensively. She's aggressive, she makes plays, and she disrupts passing lanes. We'll adjust accordingly. Classic leadership shown by Paige. I couldn't agree with her more. I think it's a different style because they played it without. I watched them live when Azzi wasn't playing, so there are more lulls. So they're gonna have to figure out ways to manufacture some points. And I think with Sarah, getting more comfortable being a leader out there, I think that's where they're gonna turn. So this matchup also is a little personal for Ashlynn. She grew up in Noblesville, Indiana, just 2 hours south of South Bend. With family and friends in attendance, she'll have an extra motivation to put on a strong performance, and hopefully that works. You want to show out for your friends, but sometimes that can have the opposite effect. So, I hope she can manage those emotions and the adrenaline of, man, I'm playing in front of essentially my home crowd, even though they're cheering against me. Notre Dame is led by an elite backcourt, as we talked about. Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, Sonia Citron. Hidalgo was a freshman phenom, but she leads the Irish in scoring this year with 24.6 points per game. She had 6.8 rebounds and 4.1 steals. She is a monster. Miles contributes across the board, averaging 7.2 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 6.6 assists. I love Olivia Miles. She's one of my favorite players on this team. She does it all. You just listen to her stats: 17, 6, and 6. She is a absolute complete player. Sonia Citron adds 15 points a game, leads the team in free throw percentage. She literally down the stretch, if we need to foul, don't foul her. She shoots at almost 94%. It's pretty much a done deal. The Irish run much of their offense through pick and roll action involving Kate Koval and Latu King. I think the versatility of Koval and King's dominance on the boards create a matchup problems for opposing defenses that we're going to have to really try to focus on blocking out, because Kate Koval is a load. She's huge. She's 6'5", but she's also a wide body gal. She is not someone that is going to be easily moved off her spot. They're relentlessly crashing the boards on the offensive glass. It's helped them maintain almost a plus 10 rebounding margin this season. And it will 100% test our front court with Ice, Sarah, and Jana Elfie. I think this is an absolute must step up game for Jana. She's playing up in competition, up in physicality. And I think she can, as we talked about, it's not that you don't have to worry about fouling. It's that with the depth of the team, it shouldn't be in the back of your mind that, like, I have to be less aggressive. I want her to be more aggressive. Ice is more than capable of holding her own. You can have Sarah in the block as well. And so, look, it's going to be a challenge. They're King and Koval are some tough cookies. So I think the challenge is containing Notre Dame's guards, though, because when they have the opportunity to create, that's when Kate Koval, Laitu King are more effective. Those two are not creating their own shots. They may get some posts, they may get some slips to the basket on pick and roll, but you don't have to worry about them in the offensive game. If you can stop one of the trio, and that one is Hannah Hidalgo, and sometimes stop is relative to, I don't know, minorly disrupt, if you will, versus you're not going to shut her down. You're not going to let her. She's not going to score 4 points tonight. She's going to get hers. It's how she gets it. Is she going to be efficient? Is she going to have to shoot 22 shots to get 25 points? If she does that, then we're probably winning this game. And then same goes with either Olivia or Sonia. If they're efficient and they hit open shots, we're going to have to match them offensively. But be nice to disrupt what they do or what they like to do on offense so that we can get some fast break opportunities, create some turnovers, and do what UConn does, which is lead the nation in field goal percentage at 51.8%. Much of that efficiency comes from Paige her ability to create and score. Also, Sarah's ability to create and score. Without Fudd's sharpshooting, though, the Huskies will need to absolutely balance this out throughout the roster and keep up with Notre Dame's balanced attack. This game is one of the most storied rivalries in the sport, and we will talk about that in the rest of the show. But iconic matchups, Final Fours, regular season thrillers. UConn leads the all-time series 39-15, but Notre Dame is literally going for their third straight win against UConn in as many years. Don't think that's ever happened to Gina. Thursday marks the 25th top 10 matchup. Tonight, Thursday night, marks the 25th top 10 matchup between the programs and will be the final game in a 4-year home-and-home series. Though both Gino and now Ivy have expressed interest in continuing the rivalry. I would imagine they'd continue to do it. Why wouldn't they? So what's at stake tonight? For Notre Dame, this game is an opportunity to prove they can compete with the best teams, and the two losses early in the year are kind of outliers. They are particularly young core led by Hannah and Olivia Miles. But look, this game is about UConn and Notre Dame and star power. And I know we're missing Azzi, but we have Sarah and Paige. We have the trio of guards that Notre Dame employs. It's really going to be about, who steps up tonight, who makes plays. Can UConn get through some adversity without Azzi on the floor? Because they started to look like they were an absolute wagon with her against Louisville. That's going to be the key aspect of tonight's game. Which team can execute its game plan and who can do it more effectively with a game loaded with star power, the history of the programs, the high stakes. Neither of these teams want to lose to each other. Notre Dame's trying to keep that streak alive of beating UConn, which is so rare in the Gina Auriemma era. So I think you're going to get exactly what we'd expect from a UConn versus Notre Dame game. When we return, let's take a step back and look at the history of this rivalry and the greatest games, and also the top 5 greatest games as we move on to the last segment of the program, starting after this. There's nothing like being courtside for a live NBA game. The energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers squeaking on the court, and the thrill of seeing your favorite players up close. It's an experience you can't replicate. I still remember the roar of the arena in Charlotte when I saw Kemba Walker hit a buzzer beater back in 2015. I can literally remember it like it was yesterday. What an experience. In this season, I know Husky fans can't wait to watch Paige and Sarah Strong live, because who wouldn't be? But here's the thing. Finding great tickets doesn't have to be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time doesn't just offer tickets to sports. They've got you covered for concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with their new Game Time Picks feature, it's easier than ever to find incredible deals on seats without sifting through endless options. I checked out the Game Time Picks recently and found some amazing deals for some friends. Very interested in theater here in Greensboro. And not only were the prices unbeatable, but the app made it so simple to see panoramic seat views before purchasing that they had to buy them. Plus, with their all-in pricing, there is no surprise fees at checkout. It's so convenient. Their low price guarantee means if you find a better price, Game Time will credit you 110% off the difference. So why wait? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it, guys? It's game time. All right, so we did an extra long first segment because I wanted there to be absolutely no doubt about how important this game is and what it means for both sides. But that being said, when I do a podcast, I love to dive into the history of teams. It's one of the reasons why I did a full episode on Gino's history and his, Chris Daly being an integral part of his staff for 40 years. And when I think about this UConn Notre Dame rivalry is one of the fiercest rivalries in women's sports. And this is more than just basketball. It's a story of two programs that have defined an era of basketball, pushing the boundaries of greatness in women's college basketball. And let's start with some context. UConn is the most decorated program in NCAA history. I don't have to tell anybody that's a UConn fan that listens to the show that that's the case. 11 national championships under Gino, looking for a 12th. On the other side, you had Notre Dame with the legendary Muffet McGraw, one of the best names in all of sports. How she built her own dynasty with 2 national championships and 9 Final Four appearances. Obviously, big disparity there, but still, I don't think anyone can scoff at 2 national championships and 9 Final Fours. It was built on drama. This rivalry, the dominance of one side or the other. 2 teams who faced off 54 times. UConn leads the series with 39 wins. The most recent victories by any opponent against Notre Dame. The Irish are the only team to notch double-digit wins against UConn, proving they're more than capable of standing toe-to-toe with our juggernaut Huskies. The intensity of this rivalry comes from its high stakes. Of those 54 games, 8 were in the NCAA tournament, including 2 national championships showdowns. Both teams have delivered legendary performances on basketball's biggest stage, elevating not only their programs, but also the sport itself. Elevating the characters that are Muffet McGraw and Gino Auriemma. Because games are not just about who scores the most. The outcomes are. But why we go watch, why we go use Game Time app to pay for tickets and go watch in person, or why we spend our time away from family and friends because we're so enamored with the sport and we want to watch what happens in a game between Notre Dame and UConn, is because it's appointment television. Gino Auriemma versus Muffet McGraw. I know Muffet's not there anymore, but these were the stakes, and it's one of the most iconic games in basketball history because of what we're about to talk about here. The top 5 games in UConn history. When we come back from the break, you got to stay with us because the 5 most iconic games in this rivalry's storied history was filled with unforgettable moments, star performances, and thrilling finishes that will remind you of maybe you were either upset because of a UConn loss or breathless because of a UConn win. So we're going to tackle that coming up after the break. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, you view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. For our purposes, right now, UConn is giving 3.5 points on FanDuel's app, and it's on the road. So without Azzi Fudd. Not sure how I feel about that, but if you're betting on that, maybe tread lightly. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. Last segment of the program. We have the game tonight. But in order to really appreciate what this rivalry has become, I'm going to talk through the 5 best games in UConn, the 5 greatest games. Some of them are UConn losses, so don't take it easy. But in terms of their impact, the greatness of the game, etc. So start with number 1. These are in no particular order. This is just the 5. I feel like the 5 greatest games. You can stack rank them any way you want. 2011 Final Four. Notre Dame 72, UConn 63. This game shifted the dynamic of this rivalry. It was April 3rd, 2011 in Indianapolis. UConn was the favorite as usual. They were chasing a 3rd straight national championship, but Notre Dame had other plans. Skylar Diggins was the star of the night. The sophomore guard delivered a masterful performance, scoring 28 points, dismantling UConn's vaunted defense. Notre Dame had lost twice to UConn earlier that season, but they executed flawlessly when it mattered most. Muffet McGraw's game plan was simple yet brilliant. Contain UConn's post players and force them into tough outside shots. The Irish outscored the Huskies 38-26 in the second half, taking control of the game and silencing critics who thought they couldn't compete with UConn. How could you think not, having lost twice that year? But this win propelled Notre Dame into the championship game. And though they fell short of the title, it was a defining moment for the program, and it proved that they could beat the unbeatable. Yeah, that Notre Dame team lost to Texas A&M in the final, coached by Gary Blair, and the most outstanding player, Danielle Adams, was their first title. And yeah, I think that really propelled Notre Dame, that they could hang with the powerhouses. Number 2 on the list, 2013 NCAA Final Four, UConn 83, Notre Dame 65. Yes, we win this game. Fast forwarded 2 years, the stakes were even higher. Notre Dame had beaten UConn 2 times earlier that season, including a grueling triple overtime game in South Bend. The Irish seemed to have UConn's number, but when the two met in the Final Four, the Huskies reminded everyone why they were the sport's standard bearers. Led by freshman phenom Brianna Stewart, UConn dominated from the start. Stewart scored 29 points, grabbed 4 rebounds, and blocked 4 shots in a performance that solidified her status as the next great Husky. Could Sarah Strong do something similar tonight? We'll find out. UConn's defense was suffocating, holding Notre Dame to just 35% shooting. That's the kind of stuff I'm hoping for against this Hannah Hidalgo-led team. This game wasn't just a win. It was an absolute statement. Gino Auriemma's squad avenged their earlier losses and went on to win the national championship, marking the beginning of Stewart's historic college career. Number 3 on the list, 2018 Final Four, Notre Dame 91, UConn 89 in overtime. If you're a fan of buzzer beaters, even if it's against UConn, this game is for you. Arika Agumbawali etched her name in basketball history with a shot that will be played for generations. The stage was the 2018 Final Four, Columbus, Ohio. UConn came into the game undefeated and heavily favored, but Notre Dame had other ideas. The game was back and forth, neither team giving an inch. Kaitlyn Samuelson, Gabby Williams, Carrie UConn, Agumbawali, and Jessica Shepard led the way for Notre Dame. In the final seconds of overtime, with the score tied on a 3 from Crystal Dangerfield. She had been 1 of 7 before that moment. I thought that was, when I went back and researched this, that to me was such a flip, because she ties the game. There's 27 seconds left. I think I forget who was at the free throw line, but Notre Dame missed a free throw, get a rebound. Kaitlyn Samuelson hits Crystal Dangerfield for that 3-pointer. Again, absolute ice water in her veins, sophomore at that time. Again, was 1 for 7 that night until that moment, and was 2 for 8, tied the ball game. On the very next possession, Notre Dame dribbles down. They call timeout. They set something up. It actually wasn't a buzzer beater per se, because there was still 1 second left. So Agumbawali hit an off-balance jumper from about the corner wing-ish with about 1 second left. You could close your eyes and hear that thing rip through the net. It was the most beautiful shot, even though it hurt, I think you could ever see. And the crazy thing is, when you go back and look at the highlights, you kind of actually got a good look from Kaitlyn Samuelson. It hit the backboard in the rim and jumped off. And it was a long pass to her, about 8-9 feet away. I don't know if it would have counted. They would have had to look at it, but man, it was close, and it could have went to another overtime. But Agumbawali is the hero. She raised her arms in triumph, and that game I think is forever burned into the minds of UConn basketball fans in a bad way. But it was a game that epitomized the drama and unpredictability of this rivalry. It doesn't matter where they are, right? There's always seems like a good game. 2014. The NCAA championship game, UConn 79, Notre Dame 58. This was the game that brought the rivalry to the national stage like never before. First time in NCAA history, the two undefeated teams meet in a national championship game. The buildup was immense. Both teams entered the game 37-0. But once the game began, it was all UConn. The Huskies defense smothered Notre Dame from the opening tip. Brianna Stewart was unstoppable, scoring 21 points and grabbing 9 rebounds. UConn's backcourt of Mariah Jefferson and Bria Hartley controlled the tempo, and while Stephanie Dolson dominated inside. This game wasn't just about winning the championship. It was obviously a momentous occasion to have two undefeated teams and to be the one that's left standing. It's so, I think UConn was the greatest program in history before this, but it was just another, check on greatness, right? Two undefeated teams come there. Who won? UConn. Boom. That's up there as well. And the last one on my list is, unfortunately, the 2019 NCAA Final Four, Notre Dame 81, UConn 76, Tampa, Florida, 2019 Final Four. Once again, stakes are incredibly high. Facing a Notre Dame team with Agubawale, Jackie Young, Brianna Turner. They combined for 65 points while UConn struggled to find consistent scoring outside from Nafisa Collier and Crystal Dangerfield. The game was a nail-biter with multiple lead changes and clutch plays on both sides. But honestly, that game didn't have as much drama. Notre Dame was just a little bit better that day. And I don't know. I think this game tonight's going to be an absolute just a fantastic game back and forth between two teams that are likely going to compete for the national championship. I think if Notre Dame loses tonight, it's going to be tougher for them. I feel like this is more must-win for Notre Dame than it is for UConn. If UConn loses tonight, they'll drop to like number 4 or 5 in the polls, and they'll have multiple opportunities against USC and Iowa State, against South Carolina, eventually against Tennessee, and all of the Big East slate to solidify themselves for the tournament. But if Notre Dame loses tonight, they have 3 losses, albeit against good competition. I wonder how they slip in the rankings, because they're 8 right now with 2 losses, but they've beaten some good competition as well. So it'll be interesting. This rivalry is almost unmatched in terms of the types of high-stake games in the two teams have played over the years. I can tell you one thing. Tonight, we'll not be playing for a national championship, but we have 2 teams. We just talked about it. One out to prove that these 2 early losses are nothing to worry about, and the other at UConn, undefeated, but without one of their stars in Azzi Fudd. And, leaning on not just Paige, but the young gun, Sarah Strong, who seemingly never seems to let anything bother her. And we'll see if this tough road environment rattles her at all. I got UConn in a close one, but I could 100% see Notre Dame winning, as I predicted in the preseason, given the road game and how well Notre Dame plays at home. So stay tuned. It's going to be awesome tonight. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, and to remember, it's not just about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal here, and it's the goal for all Husky fans. Go Huskies. Get them tonight.